Hello, everybody. Welcome again to Natural Freedom League. I am John Wydogen. We are at naturalfreedomleague.com. Here once again with my producer and co-host, Chill Will Keller.
Hey, what's going on, brother? How you doing today?
Doing good. It's been kind of a busy, productive day, which is good. Did
Awesome.
laundry, stuff like that.
Yeah, love it.
I was like pretty busy all day, so I felt good about that. Today we have with us Theresa Buccola. Am I saying it right? You
That's
just told me how
correct.
to say it.
Uh-huh.
Theresa Buccola. I'm going to start off by saying the first time I had heard of you was through my buddy Mike, and Mike Mattingly, the Funky Father,
Right.
representing the shirt right now.
Right.
Uh, and you guys are kind of in this Santa Cruz area, and when all of this lockdown stuff happened, I remember hearing about you being at the beach in Carmel
Mm-hmm.
and getting arrested.
Mm-hmm. Right. Right.
And you've had quite a journey from there. I'm not sure what happened before or exactly all the details of what happened after, but we want to hear what the whole story is.
Okay. So leading up to July 4th weekend, all of the government officials, not all of them, but enough, where they had voted on closing our beaches. And so I got kind of angry about it. And so I spoke with the city manager in Carmel to try to ascertain why he thought that he had the authority to do that. And I believe it was the city manager that admitted that the beach is actually public. And then I spoke with another guy by the name of Eric, I think his name was Eric Palmer in Monterey. And he said that the residents of Monterey County owned the beaches, but they still believe that they have the authority to close them. And then the city manager in Carmel told me that he had the authority to stop human beings from hugging one another. And that was the reason that they were closing the beach, because teenagers were not respecting the COVID rules and regulations. And so they decided to close it. And then I spoke with a police officer by the name of Greg Johnson about 2 hours before I actually went down there. And the reason I called him was because I wanted to get him back in touch with his humanity and helping him to understand that he cannot stop his community from being in nature, that it's wrong. And I think I may have tried to convince him that this is the healthiest place in the world for us to be, is out in the sunlight next to the ocean air with our bare feet in the sand. And we were on the phone for probably about 12 and a half minutes. And I let him know that it was wrong for him to stop us from being able to do that. And so when I drove down to the beach, I didn't expect that I was going to do anything. I just went down there to have a look. And when these guys, they cordoned off the entire beach with police tape, like it was a crime scene. And then they had steel banisters across the parking lot. And I believe that they had police cars there. Then they weren't letting people even get into the parking lot. And then there was one car that was patrolling the water's edge, kicking everybody off the beach. And all these people were standing on the police tape, behind the police tape, as though it was some sort of a force field. And they had their masks on and they were obeying like good little pets. And so I parked my car, and I think, what I don't typically talk about was that when I saw what they were doing, I realized that something was terribly, terribly wrong, and that someone had to speak for nature and speak for God. And as far as I could see, no one was going to be willing to do that. And so I parked the car and I said, government has no right to stop us from using that beach. It's ours. It's a gift from God. We've got to go up there, and we have to go out there and stand up for our rights. And who is with me? What man is on the beach, is on the bluff right now that is going to let a woman do his job? And so the first time that I went out there, as luck would have it, there was another guy that was walking along the water's edge, and I didn't know him, but the two police officers thought that he was my husband. And so they kept saying, you have to get your husband in, you have to get your husband in. And I didn't think that it was any of their business. And so the first time I went down there, I couldn't find anybody that was in charge. And they said, you have to go back up to the bluff, and I think it was the corporal. The corporal is going to meet you up there and you can speak with him. And so I waited for probably 20 minutes. And at that time, they actually tackled Jay in the water. So there were 3 police officers that tackled him in the water, and his dog was with him just because he was walking on the beach. And so by the time they got back down to me, because I went back down on the beach to meet him because the corporal never showed up. And Joe Boucher, who is the one officer that I had that I was attacked by a couple of weeks ago, he got out of the car and he said, your husband left us no choice. We had to go in the water after him. And I said, well, you always have a choice. And he said, that's it, you're under arrest, threw the cuffs on me, and started rifling through my bag, started rifling through my pockets. And you can hear me say in the video, I do not consent to searches. And they put me in the car. Jay was soaking wet and he was barefoot because there was a puddle of water that was sloshing back and forth on our seats as we turned the corner. So they took me to the Carmel Police Department. I was searched again by a female. And then I was taken out to the sheriff's jail in Salinas, where I was searched for a 3rd time. And I was in there, I think, for about 10 hours. They took my bear mace. I had mace that they confiscated because they said that it was, I had too much. And then at 3:30 in the morning, they kicked me out into Salinas, about 30 miles away from my car. And so I have been trying to get the body cam footage of the initial arrest. And I called and I spoke with someone at the police department, and I said, can I have you mail it to me? And she said, no, we don't do that. I said, can I have a friend go pick it up? And they said, no, we can't do that. You have to come yourself. And so they had issued, I probably should have put this part in. They had issued a warrant, a bench warrant for my arrest in July when I did not show up for the arraignment. So they charged me with the initial on July 3rd at the beach. They charged me with entering a disaster area.
Oh my gosh.
And selling tear gas.
Wow.
Selling tear gas.
That's because of the bear mace?
Right. And I've already,
Jeez.
I have already stopped someone from trying to break into my place at 4 o'clock in the morning with bear mace. And so that's what I use for protection. And so they issued a bench warrant for my arrest. And Mike and I attempted, it took us about 4 hours to try to actually see the warrant. And they would not let us actually see the warrant. So they wouldn't let him have a copy. He couldn't take a picture of it. But he did wind up getting a picture of it nonetheless, because I believe that is in violation of Title 18, Section 2071, which is a federal code, and it is pertaining to concealment, destruction, and mutilation generally of court documents. So he was able to snap a photo of it. So we had all organized, and then I called the police department again and I said, can I send a friend to come pick up the body cam footage? They said, no, we don't do that. You have to come yourself. So I came with a copy of the warrant. I came with a copy of the de facto officer's oath that had kidnapped me initially. And I think it's really important that we stop using euphemisms like arrest and you got your car towed when you got it stolen by the sheriff's department, you got kidnapped, you got assaulted. I mean, language is so critical. And those are just a few of the, it's really, it's mind control propaganda. And so they, if we can say arrested and towed, then we don't have to face the fact that these guys are criminals. And so I went back with four of my friends, and they sent the two thugs out again. So the one that had kidnapped me the first time on the beach. And are you guys gonna show the video, or should I just talk about it?
I think we're gonna put a link in the description.
Okay.
So yeah,
Okay.
if you just want to describe it.
Okay, sure. Because I haven't watched it, I can't watch it.
I
So,
have seen it. So
yeah.
and I think John has seen it too.
Yeah,
Okay.
I've seen it too. I saw it live.
Oh, you saw it live?
I
Okay.
think so. I mean, I saw it that day for sure, but yeah.
Okay. So during the interaction, I show Joe Boucher his oath. At least we've been told that it's his oath. Because like I say in the video, the city clerk of Carmel, Britt Everett, has repeatedly not disclosed their unredacted oaths to us. So all we have are the, basically these blank oaths, but she swears that this is actually the oath that he signed. So I think that first he says that he recognizes it, and then a couple of minutes later he denies it. So like I discuss in the dialogue, according to Article 20, Section 3 of the California Constitution, they are required to sign a full part of their oath. And at least Joe Boucher and Paul Tomasi and a number of the other officials, and almost all of the officials in California, have signed an incomplete oath. And that therefore means that they have no authority. And they are imposters, or 241 and 242 says that they're in disguise. So I ask him for his oath, and then I say, you have to have the warrant in hand. You can have a copy of it. And then I learned late, well, actually before and later, that that's hearsay. And then I only discovered this later because I decided to reread the Fourth Amendment. It's right in the Fourth Amendment that no warrant shall issue but upon probable cause, accompanied by oath or affirmation, particularly describing the person to be seized and the place to be searched. So and or are very important words in law and these codes when you're reading them. It must include both. And so it even says right on my bench warrant that you are hereby commanded forthwith to arrest Theresa Irene Buccola and take her to the Superior Court of Monterey. It says it right in the oath. And so I tried to explain to him that it was a defective warrant, that it has to be signed by a judge, and I never got to the penal code, and that's actually 813 subsection 4, which states that it must be signed by someone with judicial authority. So mine was signed by a deputy clerk. And in other words, it has no authority whatsoever. It is also, all warrants must be accompanied by oath or affirmation by an injured party. So if there is no victim, there is no crime. This is right in our Fourth Amendment. And so I think it's critical that we start talking about this, that we remember what our rights are, because these guys willy-nilly all day long are violating their oaths. They're violating our rights because we don't even know what they are. This is how disconnected. Yeah, go ahead.
I want to ask you a question real quick, along these lines. So when you're reading off, so first you mentioned federal codes, and then you mentioned penal codes. Where are you finding these? Like where are you looking to find these codes?
Okay, so the federal codes, the website that I typically go to for that is the Cornell Law Library website. Yeah. And then the penal codes are in the California legislation page. That's, there's like Find Law and Justia, and I don't usually go to those. I go directly to the government website.
So I'm gonna act like I'm a kindergartner here. So the legislation passes, or legislators pass a bill, it becomes a law, then it goes into a code. And
No, no, we only have laws. That's all. And so codes, statutes, mandates, edicts, orders, ordinances, they have no importance when compared to a law. And in fact, I think it's called the Supremacy Clause, which states that if anything is in contradiction to the Constitution, that it needs to be forgotten. And there's a number of different federal Supreme Court cases that have ruled that codes do not apply to us. Codes are not laws. Statutes are not laws.
Right. So but you're quoting certain codes when you're saying you're in violation of this, you're in violation of that, but you're saying that those are connected to these laws that are based on the Constitution.
Laws apply to us in the private sector as living men and women. The penal codes and the statutes and the civil codes, the rules of civil procedure apply to those that have taken an oath. So employees of the corporation, government officials, that's the laws that they have to abide by, but they don't apply to us. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, as soon as they threw the cuffs on me, he never said I was under arrest. And I started demanding that I get taken immediately to, well, I think, did I skip? Or no, I didn't finish. So at some point, I guess he gets too frustrated, and I don't exactly know why, but he wound up slamming me on the ground and cuffing me. And then I got taken inside, and he said that he said, here's the warrant, but he flashed it in front of me so quickly, and I think it was blank. I can't be sure. I think it was a blank sheet of paper. And I started demanding immediately that they take me to a magistrate. And this has also been ruled in the Supreme Court repeatedly, that this whole protocol of depriving us of our due process of law, depriving us of our liberty, fingerprinting us, booking, questioning, holding us in cells, throwing us in solitary until these guys feel like letting us out, is repugnant. And it has nothing to do with our rights and our law. And they're actually committing felonies. It's called false imprisonment. So they are not even supposed to stop under a lamppost on the way to taking you to a judge. And so I said that's how sacred our liberty is in the eyes of the law. And so I said over and over and over again, I must be taken to a magistrate. Why are I not be taken to a magistrate? And he drove me directly to the jail, where I was molested by a female officer with, there was probably about 5 other officers in the intake room. So I don't know, why the room was so crowded when she was doing whatever it was that she was doing. And I refused to answer questions. So they took me to the cell, and they said that they were going to keep me in there until Monday or Tuesday. Even though I kept repeating over and over again, I want to be taken to a magistrate. One woman opened up my cell at about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and I said, I have been deprived of my due process of law. This is a violation of my Fourth and Fifth Amendments. Why have I not been taken directly to a magistrate? And she said, well, considering it's 5 o'clock on a Friday, you're not going to get to see them until Monday or Tuesday. So the whole thing was a big joke. And they would not let me have any toilet paper or a blanket, because I was under uncooperative protocol. So in essence, I was being tortured because I would not give up my private information. And then they let me out about 24 hours later. And
Wow.
so that's the world that we are living in. Yeah.
Absolutely. I want to say something because you said something extremely powerful about euphemisms. And this is so important for people to understand because words have power and we need to understand correct definitions and the conditioning and programming and the propaganda and the mind control that government and these cults use.
That's
Right.
right.
The obfuscation of words is predominant and they've been doing it for millennia.
Right.
So you using correct terms that actually define what the actions that are being done onto you
Right.
is extremely important. So I love how you said that, and what a crazy situation. And
Yeah. And even that she wasn't searching me. I was being molested. That,
yeah,
I mean,
against your will.
that's what it was. And she kept, while she's running her hands along my breasts, she's kicking my legs open. And then they all held me down and forced a mask on my face. She turned my pockets inside out. They're like really twisted, it's demonic in there. It's demonic. And, I agree with Mark Passio all the way through that I don't believe that there are any good cops. And I think that all these people that actually I've seen them be abused by cops and they still insist that they support the blue. They support the blue. Because what these guys are doing is all day long, they are ignoring their own sense of what right and wrong is. And they're only doing it, well, they're doing it for power because they get to dominate people out there in the world. But then the bottom line is they're just doing it for a paycheck. And so if you're engaging in violating people for money, what other definition do you need for that's a bad person. It's a bad man or woman.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's why what we do in terms of teaching natural law, it really is about that objective morality that the laws of the universe are based on. And the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence is an attempt by humans to codify that into some system of government.
Mhm.
But I think the power in those documents is the fact that they refer to where those laws come from God and nature.
Mhm.
Because as much as I appreciate those documents, and I do think that what you're doing is important because it's harking back to that Constitution that was codified, but I can't help but thinking that even in that system, if every member along the way has been corrupted, then the system is corrupted. Like, who is going to come and say, hey, this is against the law that was written in this Constitution, if they're all corrupted, they're all compromised.
Right.
So the only way to get people to understand what that law is by talking about morality,
Right.
because that's the root of it. It's, even if every book in the world got burned, if natural law is true, it will go on. We will
Right.
rediscover it because
Right.
that's what we're here to do. So I just wanted to point that out because it's interesting when we went to Santa Cruz this past weekend and saw Mike and them play and you guys had the bonfire. Um we could tell that your guys, the group, the Santa Cruz Voluntarists and the people out there, they're very much focused on this common law. Or one woman asked us, are we state nationals? And even though we're interested in that, because we are caught in the system. So if something happens and we have to deal with it, it's good to know those techniques. But
Hmm.
to really solve the problem at its root, people have to stop obeying, being order followers and, going against their conscience,
Absolutely.
pretending like they can, well, I was just following orders, that doesn't save you from your accountability.
Right. And I've been having quite a few conversations with people recently that they believe sometimes that, well, if the law gets passed by the legislature, then you have to do what it's like. No, no, you don't. In fact, it is your duty, as a free man or woman, to disobey anything that these guys think that they can pass in the legislature. And this is where it gets like really frightening and confusing for people, um, because my car got stolen about a month ago from the sheriff's department. And when I spoke with both the thief that stole it as well as his superior, they kept saying, well, it wasn't in compliance with vehicle code, blah, 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 blah. And I don't know where they're coming from, but a lot of these guys think that somehow or another, I have to abide by these codes. I don't. If I'm not harming anybody, it's none of your business. What it is that I do in my life, these restaurants that they just keep complying and complying, and they think another month is going to go by. And well, what can I do? The health department's like, you can just say no. How about that? How about, and I know that Passio talks about this all the time. We have to fall back in love with the sacred word no. We've forgotten how to
Absolutely.
say it.
Yeah, and this is, part of what we have to do. We need to remember, and the majority of people in the world have forgot, and they're ignorant to what a right is. Your inherent God-given natural rights.
Mhm.
And, if you don't know your rights, you're going to lose them. And we can see this just by what's going on, that there is a ruling class. There are human beings that think they are superior over other human beings.
Mhm.
And that's completely immoral and illegitimate. And the problem is that people believe this. So,
Right.
this is a belief system. It's a form of mind control because people are obeying this system. And so, yeah, no, you're right. And the sacred word, no.
Mhm.
You have
Well,
to know to say no.
well, this is one of the things that I heard Passio talk about a couple of days ago when I listened to his podcast, is that this is why it's even more dangerous and insidious, because the public at large believe that, the blue and the sheriffs and their deputies have the right to violate us. That's the problem.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. And
pardon me, sorry,
but
but I also wanted to mention that you are dispelling one of the euphemisms on your shirt. It's not government, it is slavery, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
that's
Exactly.
the best. That's Mark Passio's tagline. And we were just talking about how we need to add that at the end of our information, because our information walks you through the definition of natural law and then what anarchy is, what government means, but at the end of it, ultimately government is slavery.
Yes.
If you believe and condone it, you are condoning slavery.
Right. Right.
It's literally saying someone has a claim over your property or your body.
Right, right. Like, that they just stole my car. And they think that somehow or another they and colluding with the tow company have a right to sell it next
Mhm.
next week. It's like, but you know what? I'm seeing nowadays that 95% of the world does not want to be free. That's why we're in this situation.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right, and that's why it's so important to have the courage to speak out and go public and stand with principles and objective morality. And even government is slavery. Government means mind control. Mind control is slavery. It's not the politicians that are the enemy, right? That's not the root. The root is in the mind of the majority, because all the politicians and government and the social engineers, all they are influencers, because
Mhm,
the people, the individual still takes the action. They perform the behavior that condones the system.
mhm.
And so yeah, it's mind blowing. And oh, another thing I wanted to say about cops, because there's always going to be that one person that says not all cops are bad. All cops are bad for one reason: by taking the job, you are immediately immoral, because you are not exercising conscience, and you are working for a system that's making a claim on other people.
Right.
So
Mhm, mhm. Um, Shoot, there was something that I just wanted. Oh, well, I mean, the reason I think that people do not want to be free is because then they would have to be completely responsible for their own lives. And most people don't have the courage to do that. They'd prefer to blame others. Like, just like you can blame somebody else for your health or that you've gotten sick. And so I think that in some weird way, they're getting exactly what it is that they want. They want this oppression because, like what happened with my car is that what most people would do is they would pay the extortion fees, because it's not the impound fee and the lot fee and the tow fee. It's an extortion fee. So most people would pay it, and they'd go home and they'd grumble, and they'd throw the papers to the uh, pile of paperwork on the side of their desk, and they'd never do anything about it. And slaves complain. Slaves and servants complain. Slaves and servants believe that they can't do anything about it. So, I mean, I complain, but I fight too. Like, and I'm also a really proud person. And it pisses me off when these thugs believe that they're going to be able to get away with this. Like, and that's what happens. Like, people just keep paying the extortion fees and they keep this racket going until I don't think that they used to steal cars 10 years ago just because you have expired tags on there. And so we just keep letting it, and we keep letting it, and it just keeps getting worse and worse. And I mean, fortunately, we're still at the point where we can fight this with paperwork. You can slaughter them with paperwork. And so that's what Mike and Tim and a number of us are starting to do in Santa Cruz. We're becoming lawful ninjas. So we're not at the point where bloodshed is necessary. I still think that we might be able to catch this, but almost every piece of paper that you get from the government is going to have fraud in it somewhere. I just decided a couple of months ago, that I wanted to read about the sales tax for California. And so once you start to shed all these layers of lies and deception, all the stuff starts popping out of the woodwork. So I was reading on sales tax, and it's like chapter 2, and it says, for the privilege of selling goods within the state of California, privilege. 13 times on this one page, they talk about how we are we are given the privilege of me being able to make a stained glass window and to sell it to somebody else. And I looked at it and I was like, did I never catch this before? How is this like, how is this even possible? And so what I really want to encourage people to do is to stop complying. It's okay if you complain, but it has to be coupled with a fierce spirit to do battle with them in paperwork. Otherwise, you're failing your neighbors and you're failing your children. And so, every time that you get something from the DMV or something from the Franchise Tax Board or your property tax assessor or whatever it might be, you have to take the time to look for the fraud because it's in there. I can guarantee nearly every document that you get from the government is going to have fraud in it. And then you have to start to research. And I'm not saying it's not going to be, it's not going to be easy. But every time that I discover more fraud, every time that I stand up for myself, it's another chain of my slavery that I've broken.
Well, I think that that's the one powerful thing, because I've stepped away from, the political, I saw through the health freedom movement that, legislator is not listening to us. And so I kind of, went away from that. But when I see people doing that, the one thing that's positive about it, well, there's lots of things that are positive about it, but one of the positive aspects is that it exposes the corruption, right?
Mhm,
It's
mhm.
like people are there to observe how the legislature just changes laws as they go to get this bill passed, even though there's tons of resistance against it. They just ignore the people that are speaking out, and you don't hear people like, really being proponents of that bill, right? But they'll act like, oh, well, the majority of people want this,
Mhm,
but
mhm.
they're not going down to the Capitol to speak their mind as much as the people against it were. So
Right.
either way, I mean, it shows the corruption. So like for you and people who are confronting the system head on, it is I agree that it's like it's showing how to pick out that, like you said, the fraud or the loophole in what they're doing. But also ultimately, I think that learning how to address the system is going to be important for when people are ready to, when we need to opt out, because I
Right.
think opting out is just an act that you do, but there may be a way that you may need to address some government official who thinks he has a claim over you, and you can address them in a way that works within that system, but it's like ultimately that system is fraudulent. The whole system is fraudulent,
Right.
so
Right.
it's an interesting aspect. It's like you have to play the game, but you keep that awareness that it is a rigged game ultimately.
Right.
And these people are obviously, they're changing the rules, they're breaking the rules, they're violating people. And will they ever be held accountable? Maybe not right away. Maybe it may be years from now. And, so
Well, this is one of the things that I've certainly gotten from Passio's work. Uh, I will do the best that I can to, if an injustice has been committed against me, then I'm going to follow all the proper protocol in order to make sure that the person or the man or woman is brought to justice. Um, if it so happens that the person slips through my fingers, there's nothing for me to be concerned about, because there are systems, there are cosmic, what does he call it? Laws of creation that are in place. Everything is taken care of, everything. And so that actually brings me to the question that I wanted to ask you guys about. Can I ask it now?
Go for
of
it.
course.
Okay. So, he's a lot more eloquent in talking about this, but he basically goes through, many different lectures talking about it's karma, right? That there are consequences to amoral actions and not necessarily consequences to moral actions, but the more moral you become, particularly in the aggregate, the more free that a society is going to become. And so how is it that these dark occultists can partake in such despicable behavior and yet not think that I mean, are they escaping the laws of karma? You know, is it the cremation of care that gives them the ability to escape from karma? I don't think I've ever heard Mark talk about this.
Great question. And the answer is, do they ultimately escape? The majority, yes. Because that's why I like to call them, and I've been doing this recently, dark influencers. They're
But they
not
tell us
actually, what's that?
because they tell us in advance. Is that where you're?
They tell us, and exactly, and then the actual person is performing the actions. It's called moral culpability. So you have the order giver and the order follower. So it's, hey, go drop bombs on that village. The person goes, the soldier goes, the order follower goes and drops bomb on that village. Who is more morally culpable? Obviously the order giver is unethical, but he's not taking, that person's not taking the brunt of the karmic repercussion. It's the person that actually performs the actions. That's why we can see this, the dark occultism and the occult mockery all over the place. And they play these games where they tell you what they're going to do, right? It's hidden in plain sight, and
Mhm.
then you do it. It's like a tacit agreement.
Okay, okay. And so, I mean, but they partake in all those kind of like lurid rituals,
Sure,
right?
they're going to suffer some karmic debt, but very insignificant compared to the person that actually performed the actions.
Oh, I see. I mean, he certainly discusses that in all of the order follower videos that he has,
Correct.
right? So,
Correct.
oh,
Yeah.
I
okay.
would I would say I would add this is that ultimately they are dark occultists. So who knows what type of knowledge they have about controlling energy, casting spells, and perhaps the negative actions that they do it in such a ritualistic way, and then they sort of propagate that to the masses to reinforce that type of world, and that their ultimate goal would be to 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 avoid karma, right?
I,
Because that would be going against God, right? And
right.
so that is what they're doing. They are the oppositional force. That's shaitan, Satan. It means opposition, right? It's that drives them. They are against nature, against God, and so ultimately they are trying to figure out a way to create a world where there is no conscience, there is no karma, we're transhuman. That is what they are trying to create, I believe, at a deeper level. And so, you know, even if I would say this about them partaking in this stuff, I don't think they don't, but I think that a lot of that gets probably put out to keep us low energy. This is sort of a different angle on it, that we're it's kind of like the Wizard of Oz, right? Where we're meant to think they're so evil and powerful, and you know, and that's part of the mind control.
Interesting.
Again, I don't think it I don't I do think a lot of these people are evil and they're participating in a lot of this stuff, but I also think some of it is put there to drive us crazy, to try to figure it out and keep us low in a low vibrational state.
Uh-huh.
So I think that's another
Interesting.
aspect to what you're saying.
You know, it actually reminds me of something that I only just considered the past week or so, because I've watched a number of different like reports on cops that commit these crimes, and then they get acquitted, they get declared innocent, and it's clear that they did. And I'm not talking even about the George Floyd. because I don't, who knows whether or not that was what they told us, and I didn't do any research into it. But it's just one story after another about these police officers that murder this one, they murder that one, they rape this one, and then they're always getting away with it, right? They're always getting away. And I thought, are these stories real? Or are they just disseminating this to the dumb masses because they want us to believe that we have to accept our own slavery and there's nothing we're going to be able to do about it against the house slaves?
Mm-hmm.
They just get to kill us, incarcerate us, they steal our property, steal our money, and there's nothing that we're ever going to be able to do about it. And I just wonder, how authentic are any of those stories? There's probably portions, but I'm just wondering whether or not it's actually a very tiny percentage, and that the justice system does work a lot more efficiently than we have been led to believe.
Yeah, that's definitely a great point. It's obvious that they portray a narrative through mainstream media and educational systems and all these institutions. They're portraying the world as a certain way, and they do that to keep people in a fear-based state, a low vibratory level of consciousness, and ultimately this is a game to them. They're extremely versed in cosmic universal law or
Right,
moral law, how the laws of creation operate. um, these are geniuses. These people are incredibly intelligent, and they are celebrating the fact that they can rule over human beings, that they can play God in this physical realm on earth, and they love it. They get off on that. So
right.
they see the majority of people as cattle. So
Well, considering what it is that I see out there in the world right now, I know why they would draw that draw that conclusion.
yeah,
I mean, have you guys ever walked outside and you're like, how in the actual F are people falling for this?
every day,
This
Every day.
oh my
Every
God,
day.
every day. Yeah,
a year later. And it really it breaks my heart to consider the conveyor belt of abuse that's happening out in the Salinas jail. And it really, after I got released, it really felt like Guantanamo. And they just turn people through, it's like a meat market or it's human trafficking or something. And I thought, has nobody spoke up about this?
I want to add in because you said that. I was thinking about this earlier when it comes to the the flaw of man's law, right? Because you get a corrupt person in there and now they can rewrite the law. And I recently watched the documentary or the docudrama about Dick Cheney. I think it's called VP or something like that, but it has Christian Bale. It's really like really well done movie. It's crazy how much he looks like Dick Cheney. But they go into how he got that lawyer John Woo to write from UC Berkeley to write a paper saying that he that torture could be used in certain situations,
Mm-hmm,
and that is still on the books as an opinion,
mm-hmm,
as an opinion by a federal judge.
mm-hmm.
So don't tell me that that doesn't influence what you're experiencing now and what
Right.
we're all experiencing. Like they have dismantled that Bill of Rights. At
Mm-hmm,
least they're making a claim to, right?
mm-hmm,
And so again, that just points to the flaws of man's law. And again, if you're dealing with the system, you've got to do whatever you can to deal with it. But you have that awareness that the whole system is corrupt, and it's just getting worse, because where on the chain of authority is someone going to say, hey, this is wrong? And when, even when in a lot of these cases people get people to step down or resign,
Mhm.
that doesn't change, the system. And
Right. Right.
so it's almost like just kicks the can down the road further, and so
Right.
it's
Yeah.
just interesting.
Yeah. It's certainly overwhelming. Um, but that's probably what happens is that people go through it, they get out and they're like, well, what can I do? Right?
Exactly. Yeah, that's an excellent point. People don't understand the power that they have, right? Because even
Right.
like how you were saying, like your car got stolen, right? And people would that would happen to someone, and they would say, "Oh, I messed up. I broke this man's law or this regulation or whatever," and they would turn it internally
Right.
and look down on them, and it lowers their self-worth and their confidence, and they feel like a bad person. And I
Right.
wanted to say, I use this term slavery a lot, and I get slack from it from people, but there is physical slavery going on. Just look at the prison system. The
Right.
majority of people are
Mhm.
locked up in prison for um, victimless crimes.
Right.
It's
Right.
it's crazy. So
Well, I was on a Zoom call a couple of weeks ago, and it was really shocking how they just spin through these indigent and ignorant people, just one right after the other, after the other. They give away their rights and their authority to a public defender, and nowadays you can't even see the public defender, right? Because they have
mhm.
this thing on. And so they agree to, what is it? Community service, slavery. It's not community service, it's slavery.
Exactly.
Then they want to put you in either the county jail, or they want to put you in prison where now they get slave labor, or they are able to extort some sort of money, which is also a euphemism for a conversion of your labor, time, and resources. It's basically they're stealing your life force. So when you want to pay out a fine, or you want to pay a parking ticket or speed a violation or anything like that. However, we are discovering that there are ways that you can fortify yourself. So you can submit a fee schedule. And so we just got one recently from one of our mentors around here, and you submit it to the Secretary of State, to the California Highway Patrol, to your local police department, your local sheriff's department, the DA, maybe the secretary, somebody on the federal level. And it will go through, if I am incarcerated, you agree to pay me $5 million a day. If I'm pulled over for a speeding citation, it's $75,000 per hour. If I'm called into court, because this is all about commerce. This is all they want is our money, or they want our slave labor. And I'm hoping that what happens is that if you're able to turn the tables on them and lift yourself out of being prey, because these guys are predators, right? If you are able to jump from being in the category of prey, pardon me for this analogy, but being one of the young, fast members, animals of the herd. And I know I don't even like to say herd immunity, but if you're one of those ones that they can't catch, or if they start screwing around with you, it's not just that they're not going to get any money out of you, it's that you might actually cost them money. They're just going to, we hope, leave you alone. So there's a fee schedule, there's a notice of violation that you can hand to a law enforcement officer as soon as he approaches you. You hand him a notice of violation that enumerates all of your rights, how much it's going to cost him. There's waivers of tort. You just have to be willing to do your homework. That freedom is not free, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
who would you recommend? What sites or people do you listen to that kind of teach you some of this education?
A Warrior Calls is a really good one. Christopher James. And then Crow 777. He's got a great channel. He doesn't do specifically stuff about common law, but he weaves it into many of his shows. So he's done a whole bunch of shows on affidavits. This whole fraud that's happened against us as soon as we're born in the birth certificate. Also, Christopher James does a lot of work in that. And then I just got, someone sent me, the guy's name is Fagiolo.
Alfonso Fragioli.
Okay, that's another one, but I haven't listened to any of his work yet. But
He's got good stuff.
Yeah,
he's got good
they're
work.
off the top of my head. Yeah.
Yeah. There's this system, and I think it's just we're hundreds and hundreds of years past the time where it was known by a good amount of people, maybe the majority of people, and that is the system of words that they use that binds us, that tries to control our energy with social security number, birth certificates, all this stuff. All these words are obfuscated and used against us, but there are loopholes, I think, that you can again, you got to put in a lot of time and energy and do your homework. You could use to your benefit. It's like kind of like learning how to read the matrix code, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
there's definitely something there.
Yeah, like I was saying before, as soon as I read the sales tax website and started seeing all that stuff about privilege, and then if you start to do any research into the birth certificate, it's really quite fascinating. Because there's the how it's all related to the water and the ocean, that they're trying to keep you out in in maritime law. And so you have the birth, you come down the birth canal because boats are birthed. You will pull into a dock. You have a dock tour that delivers the baby. It's the umbilical cord is connected to the navel. All this, it's a trickery and fraud. And even, the fact that they take the footprints of the baby. Have you guys seen that on birth certificates? A lot of times they will imprint the sole of the feet. Well, I've heard that the reason they do that is because they're actually, the Vatican is attempting to steal the soul. So we know, soul, human soul is S-O-U-L, the soul of Fia is S-O-L-E. And so all this stuff is not by accident. Yeah. And so we're constantly binding ourselves in spellcraft all day long, and we don't even realize it.
Yeah. It's word magic and contracts.
That's right.
These are energetic contracts, and they're using words. And, it's interesting, the time period we're in now that we're in the new age of Aquarius, right? Aquarius is air. So now we're seeing, cryptocurrency, social credit scores, all this stuff. It's like the new system we're in that transition of a new system from maritime now to this air digital era. So we're definitely in that transitional phase. And it's going to be interesting. I think, a solution, and people need to understand that to break away and to make change, this is a new level of consciousness. The world that we are hoping, a moral society, is not going to look anything like the society we're living in now, because this system has been built on slavery for thousands of years. So that brings up a whole different types of topics. But you did mention that people don't want to be free because of responsibility, and that is a huge point. You are dead right about that. That is, people get scared about change and taking ownership and responsibility for themselves and for their actions. It's so easy. They've been conditioned to just abdicate their rights.
Well, even if you say something like, well, he made me come down, blah, blah, no, people aren't making you do anything. And so that's the sort of like all day long, we're somehow or another, other people have power over us to be, it's a much subtler form, but it's still a form of slavery. And so you have to pay attention to the way that these words are, we're tricking ourselves all day long.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we had chatted with Mike about potentially making a like a Dropbox for you with information where people can write letters to
Oh, great.
the
Yeah.
sheriff or something like that.
Yes. Well, I think, either it would be the sheriff, the city manager, and the DA, that people need to, first, please watch the video, do some research into what a warrant is supposed to look like, what a lawfully executed warrant is supposed to look like. And then watch the video. And if people are, it makes them angry, then write an email or call the city manager and the sheriff and demand that these guys are fired and that they are arrested. Because, we've noticed, actually, Mike is the one that has noticed this, that Maldonado, it looks as though he's being trained by Boucher. And so they have a campaign to multiply that violence, because he's also the guy that tackled Jay in the water 5 minutes before they arrested me. And then they threw me to the ground. And so these guys, they engage in this type of violence with seeming impunity. When are they going to be stopped? We're going to have to stop them. And so this has to be an active campaign of writing emails and calling and saying that the people of this community will not tolerate our public service. Because here's the other thing, they go home to the houses that our hard work bought for them. It's just outrageous. So yeah, we've got to make a stink about it. Yeah.
Yeah. We'll definitely do that. We'll link it to the below the episode. We'll link all the videos of what happened.
Okay.
And, yeah, we were talking to Mike about just having the link. You could share it anywhere at that point once you had the link. And
okay. So do you guys want me to send you like emails and phone numbers?
Yeah, talk to Mike about it, because he had mentioned it to us yesterday, and
Okay.
he said he was working on an email as well.
Okay.
To like a sample email, and then people can choose who to write to or what they want to do. So
okay.
Yeah, we'll talk about it, but we'll definitely include it in the notes of this video, and we'll help get the word out.
Yeah, the other thing is, I really want to stop other people from being treated like that. I know that I have a duty to all of the other innocent men and women that are going to be brutalized by this guy. So yeah, I would like to do whatever I can.
Good for you, for your strength and your courage and your moral obligation. That's amazing.
Yeah, thanks. Well, Mark Passios helped a lot. And I wanted to thank you guys for going out there and raising the consciousness for, with all the people that you speak to every time. Yeah, I really appreciate it. So thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thanks, Theresa.
Thank you, Theresa.
Right on.
Okay.
Thanks for coming on.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, God bless you guys.
Yeah, and you too. Will, have a good night.
All right, John. Great chat.
Thanks, good job.
Okay. All right, gentlemen. Bye-bye.
Always remember, put something good in the air and plant something good in the earth. Peace.
Yeah.
Bye, Theresa.
Bye.
We be the natural freedom league, cause we become no longer unbegun. We seek in the wisdom, and that's why we did come to this prison, a prism. And that's why the beat thumps, and that's why we speak